Come on. All right. Well, it's not gonna let me. That one's public, and now we're live again. Public. Okay. View in live control room. God, why did it fuck itself up like that? Why? Why? Okay, there it goes. It's going again. Great. That's unfortunate that that happened that way. I don't know why it worked that way. What I wanted to say was this. The individual who wrote this video essay clearly cares very much about Dark Souls, and I respect that immensely. However, the individual who wrote this video essay is very clearly not very good at handling their own underlying assumptions. And is also is prone to generalization, which is to say that the experience that I have had is the same as the experience that many other people have had. And so that's elementized by the continuous use of like we and statements about we felt this about the thing and now we feel this and we all agree that this is the way. It's like, no, we don't, actually. You're supposed to be writing an argumentative essay to convince me that that is the way that I should feel about the thing. I am not convinced. And I don't find this individual's argumentation very convincing. However, I do already agree with a lot of the underlying principles. I just don't think that they're very well explained or described or named or stated. So the conveyance within this video itself is pretty shite. It's not very good. The urge to convey is excellent, though. Is excellent. And I despair because in criticizing the mode of conveyance, I will, to some extent, discourage conveyance, and that is not my intent. I'll discourage the attempt to convey, and that is not the intent. But the conveyance needs to be better, otherwise it will turn people away from the actual ideas present within it, which is something that I must learn about myself, and my own tendency to generalize thoughts. So, there we go. Hello, Nito. Hello, Shu. I don't know why the stream died the way that it died. I wish that it had not, but it has. I'm going to pull this up and continue playing it. There we go.
Once again, it is the hand of mastery, the great deal done in apparently little. The fiendishly complex, disguised in a mask of simplicity.
Conciseness, simplex. Simplexity.
Finally, we have emotional impact. For inspiration and the creative process, emotions are vital. They must have been intense. Gameplay rewards the simple
Why
player,
is this the way?
the wise player. Overdo it, try to be too good, step out of a confidence level at any point, and you will be punished. Achieve greatness.
Okay.
Both of these
I outed it
aspects
and
are
brought
driven
it
by
back.
the intense emotion we experience at the hands of the game. For us, the
Come
game
on.
was almost too hard at first. Having not played Demon Souls at all, even getting out of the asylum was a challenge. But there was another problem. We decided to start with the deprived
There we go.
character.
And
At
it
the
should be
game's
full
release,
back.
at
And
least on the
we're
European
streaming
version,
at
the game
30
had a bug.
FPS instead of 60 now.
The deprived character picked up the broken straight sword, but at the point where the club should be, was nothing. So we had to get out of the asylum with only a broken straight sword, as novices, to any
Back again, not for long, I'm guessing. Well, I did just stop it in order to change the frame rate and reduce the load on the internet that I'm creating. So we'll see.
However,
hopefully that makes it
it is a testament
clearer.
to Dark Souls that simple trial and error learning, the combat against the hollows in the asylum, afforded several hours of entertainment. Feeling your motion, your vulnerability, the feel of the shield, the bang of a missed sword, all of this was enough. Learning layered slowly. With time, the parry was discovered. Slowly the attacks of the hollows were learned. All of this slow, painstaking but fair learning afforded enough entertainment to not throw the game away as too hard. This is a testament to how refined, how balanced, how accurate, and how just goddamn satisfying the gameplay is in Dark Souls.
Yep.
You really feel you are there, that your back is exposed if you roll the wrong way, that a hair's breadth mistake will do you in.
It's close to
In our
a full spectrum
no
experience,
other game
isn't it?
achieves quite this feeling of
The
having
music,
skin in the game,
the
of being right there.
yeah, it produces
Eventually,
flow states.
After a long time, a knight dropped his sword, and then, having perfected the parry and now turbocharged with, well, you know,
A
an
sword.
actual weapon, we were through the trial by fire and ready to rock. But this is what Dark Souls does. It teaches you with carrot and stick, but with a lot of stick and damn good carrot.
And you don't know what the carrot is,
It's
actually.
work hard, play hard.
Nah, you
It's
don't
not
know
for
what the
wimps.
carrot is.
This
You don't know
is
what's
the
beyond the fog
emotional
wall.
impact,
You don't
and
get
the
to know.
truest hit of frustration.
You just have to trust that there will be something
eventual relief and
that is
success
coming.
are so intense that no one can forget certain Dark Souls moments. They're burnt into the memory. Everything from the combat to the lore rewards the seeker. It pays out for your effort, your search, your determination. Just as the gameplay can be no fun, so too can the story pass you by unless you focus. You reap what you sow in Dark Souls. This goes from the creative process, where Miyazaki and his team would not
the effort that you
compromise
put
on
in
design until it was right,
is what you get out.
to the gameplay, and to the lore. Just as with our experience, you get out what you put in.
There it is. That's the line.
On the emotional connection in Dark Souls, it is also worth examining the lot disguised as little
Literally
and
encourages
reach
your
for
exploration and
perfection
collection,
behind
yeah.
these emotions.
Well, that's like
These are not
reality,
by
isn't it?
accident. There is a
You
great
can-
deal
you
of
can
psychology
interface with
laced
reality
into Dark Souls.
However you want.
Movements and timings of enemies are thought down to be perfect,
But only by
pacing.
stopping and looking
The
at all the
deliberately
things can you actually
random
understand.
timing, ensuring it is hard for the human mind
And nobody
to learn
tells
and
you the grand
integrate,
story.
layered into the enemy's attacks.
And if they do, they're lying. Both of the
There
snakes
are
are
a low
lying,
number
right?
of enemy types in each area, so we have a strong memory of certain enemies, but we can also hold their attributes and attacks in our short-term memory. The Pavlov dog-style pairing of sounds with events work to create heightened emotions.
Yep.
Who can forget the
Ugh.
comfort of the sound of a bonfire, recorded to perfection? Or the fear coming with the sound of Andrea Vestora's hammer, the sound of a weapon, when we were feeling so vulnerable on that first playthrough.
Yeah, it really just hooks your brain. It's built to
of
be
course,
a reflection
the
of your
taunting
real
noise of the
your
"you
real
died"
experience
scream.
of the world. How you really experience the world is closer to Dark Souls than anything else that I know of. It is
The
truly full
light-filling
spectrum.
screen of the bonfire and the dark faded image of death, different to the carefully chosen sounds, highly associated and correlated with the emotions they intend to produce. Deliberate uniqueness is another method used to create strong emotional impact.
Gosh.
Solar or Sigmar are memorable through their unique garb, their individual dialogue,
Solar!
and the
Praise
timbre
the
of their voices
sun!
echoing within their helmets. Dark Souls strives to be unique as a whole, but also throughout its parts. It strives to be memorable. The delineation of areas adds further to this effect. The Crystal Caves, the Darkroot Basin, Blighttown, Izalith, the Painted World. We are certainly in the same universe, but our memories latch onto these areas as totally different. Dark Souls forces us to remember areas through repetition and emotional engagement, cornerstones of learning, but also through vivid differentiation on our available senses, sight and sound. Emotional impact was not achieved by accident. Now
Not
let us look for the Dark
accidental
Souls
at
philosophy in the lore. Miyazaki as a child read Western fantasy books, but because of his limited English, he had to
Bazaku.
fill in gaps in the story. The plot, the dialogue, the relations between characters. A great deal of this had to be supplemented by his imagination. He found that this led to a richer experience and was instrumental in his approach to Dark Souls and its lore philosophy. In a sense, this is the reaching for perfection. To understand the lore, you must work, think, explore, discover, invent, use logic and imagination. However, many misinterpret these deliberate gaps in provided information as being equivalent to Dark Souls having a subjective story. The belief is that because the story is not provided explicitly and is made deliberately ambiguous by the creators, there is no absolute truth to the lore. As
A lot
if
of people
they
think
made
that
it
about
as
the
a
real
reading
world
to what you
too.
like project.
There's no
This
fundamental truth
argument
in
has flawed
existence. It's
reasoning
all
and also ignores
all
the
social
approach of the
construction.
Dark Souls creators in every other aspect of the
false,
game.
false, false, false.
It also lacks an understanding of the creative process itself when applied to fiction. Let us go back to the inspiration of this sort of opaque storytelling, which has to be filled in or worked out by the reader or player. The inspiration was a Western fantasy book.
No, the inspiration was
The story
reality,
of these Western
dude.
fantasy books are non-ambiguous. They are concrete. It was Miyazaki's English which led to the incomplete retrieval of this story. This can be replicated by giving incomplete information in any story, such as Dark Souls.
Oh, it's like reality.
However, the root story must be tangible, otherwise the whole process falls down. Let us emphasize this again.
Tangible physical reality.
Miyazaki was inspired by the guesswork and attempted filling in of a concrete, objective story from which he drew only limited information. He was not inspired by our work with ambiguous subjective story. This is added to by the fact that to make a body of lore, you cannot have ambiguities with so many intersecting item descriptions and dialogues. This creates what every fiction creator of any form know is all too easy to do when desperately trying not to. The plot hole. An internal inconsistency which could not happen in reality. But what is remarkable about Dark Souls is there are no plot holes.
Nope.
With so many characters,
there are many
times, dialogues, items, motivations and histories.
There are many empty
Not
spaces.
once is there a single incompatible line of dialogue or item description. With so many objective aspects in dialogue and item descriptions, to make a work of ambiguity not create a single inconsistency would be a feat of probability amounting to a miracle. So no, Dark Souls lore interpretation is not all equal, and it is not the story that is right for you. There is an objective history to the world that the creators have thought through. Just look at the evidence of their own work. The care and attention is ubiquitous.
It's incredible.
Before even designing the world, they discussed in depth the role of the four kings. They workshopped the individual motivations of characters. This is not something done with the intention of leave it a mess, and I'm sure someone will fill in the story.
Somebody
That
will
would
do
simply
it.
yield, yep, you guessed it, a mess. Dark Souls lore is an objective layer that the creators are likely to never reveal the truth of, but it does exist. There may be gaps we can never fill, but the truth is known by the creators. It's as though there are a string of numbers from software created, but they removed some of the sequence.
Like a fundamental
You
set
can
of
try and
rules.
guess the missing numbers
The
from
Dharma
pattern.
of Dark Souls. Ooh, that's a good video
may
title.
never
The Dharma
precisely
of
know
Dark
the
Souls.
answer,
Ooh,
but from software knows, or at least a subset of them do. In addition, upon close examination, the evidence is often so conclusive, so objective, that it forces one to accept certain conclusions. For example, the Souls community has for a long time erroneously believed that demons were created after the Witch of Izalith was engulfed by the Chaos Flame. But the demon's catalyst incontrovertibly tells us that the demon Fire Sage existed before the witch was engulfed. Quite quickly, through the form of objective evidence, cross-referenced, we are forced to accept many non-subjective, non-ambiguous truths. This amount of objective, logical evidence, without a single disagreement amongst it, is evidence of either objective lore, or of From Software creating one of the most complex, coherent lores in video games of all time.
Both.
By blind luck. The odds of which I will not estimate, but the number of zeros would probably take me longer to say than the timeline episode was.
It's both.
The emotional impact of the lore is unquestionably strong. After all the work to figure the story out, the impact of revealing tragedies that you passed by is quite something. The stories are poignant, touching, and almost universally deeply sad.
Yeah.
Even our story can pass us by,
the world
whether we
is.
have been manipulated all along, whether we are heroic or cruel, or simply pointless. All of these stories are scattered around us, and we almost miss them. Yet having found a sandbank, and yet there is more implicit lore than perhaps any other area, and more than the community yet knows. Dark Souls still has a lot of lore to give, and it's been in plain sight. And what Ashlake has to say is going to be part of the video that we are more excited for than any yet. For Dark Souls is the Great Hollow. It is the double hidden wall leading to great depth. You have to work and think to uncover its mysteries.
Yeah.
It is the Ash Lake, where there is so little and yet so much.
Okay.
We have all died so often and yet come back for more. It's as if Dark Souls has received all the players' deaths as sacrifices, blood offerings to strengthen it. The hardship, the challenge, the reward, the nail-biting realness of Dark Souls is why Dark Souls hasn't died. This longevity is a direct result of the philosophy that permeates every aspect of it. So next time you die,
It's the subconscious.
reflect that, in a way, you are offering yourself up to the god of video games.
Yeah, I like that. I like that as an idea. I like the video too. And as I said before, I like the intent of the video maybe more than the actuality of the video. The intent of the video is obviously to demonstrate something fundamental and universal about Dark Souls, which exists. And I think it does a good job of trying. I do think that there's a tendency toward universalization in the way that the video is structured and the way that the author writes his thoughts. That's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, though, especially when it's coupled to a genuine attempt to share. So I like the video quite a bit, and I thank you for sharing it, Sid. Here's what I think, as a jumping off point, here's what I think of what Dark Souls is to me. To me, Dark Souls and the games that I've played of it are representations of the subconscious, of the actual nature of experience of existence. The battlefield of life, wherein you find yourself awakening in a graveyard, find you are called certain things, hollow or otherwise, and questing to discover meaning that is not given to you. And every time that it is given to you, it's a lie. It is the meaning that you find yourself in uncovering the little bits and pieces scattered throughout the landscape. And through the actual act of experiencing that you find meaning. Imagine you started playing a Dark Souls game, and after wandering around for a while, stopped and said, "There's no point to this. It doesn't tell me what I'm supposed to do, or where I'm supposed to go." What a foolish thing to do. There's only one way to go. Even when there are many ways to go, there's only ever one way to go. And in Dark Souls, it's always forward. And in life, it's always forward. The enemies that you face are demons within, representations of demons within, of monsters within. And they go beyond demons, too. They become representations of you and all the different aspects of you. And it gets more and more complex as we move through the series. And as you grow as a character, your soul level is a direct result of how accomplished you are at exploring space. So if you can explore a section of space, and that means eliminating the enemies that are within it, you gain souls from that. And in order to, if you die having explored that space, you have to get back to where you were through all the same enemies. It doesn't get easier for you, having made it that far. You just get better at it. It doesn't get easier, you just get better at it. You learn the patterns, you learn the way of being, the way to move. And you can move through that space and get back to the place where your souls are and pick up where you left off and continue from there. And if you can bring it all back to the center of the you, then you can exchange those souls for leveling up, for active change in the self. And until then, you can't. You pick up items and weapons, tools and armor, representations of self, ways that you want to look and experience and be, ways that you want to move, forms and patterns that you want to move in, and you use those to fight the enemy. And the most poignant of experiences in any of the Souls games comes from the loop built around the fog wall and the boss room. And it's unchanged. It's the core gameplay is unchanged from the very beginning of Dark Souls 1, from the very beginning of Demon Souls even, all the way through Elden Ring, through all the Souls games and Bloodborne. There's a bonfire, a safe place. There's a wall, a fog wall. There's an enemy, a monster. And then there's another wall, and you don't know what's beyond the other wall, except that it's the only way forward. Okay? So that's the framing of experience, of life, is this. You exist and you're in a place of safety. And if you stay here, you can stay here forever, and you can observe all the beauty that you've seen, but you'll always be wondering what's beyond, and you'll never know. So you step beyond the fog wall. You step beyond, and what you find is a monster. Because as soon as you step into the unknown, what you find is obstacle. And usually the obstacle is a part of you. In fact, always the obstacle is a part of you, because it's not an obstacle if you view it as not an obstacle. Does that make sense? Like, by coming into contact with it, it's how you should be that overcomes the obstacle. And so the obstacle is you. The problem is you, and the solution is you. with any Dark Souls boss, there's this huge complicated puzzle in timing and dodge timings and attacks and all these things. But the part of the puzzle that's missing isn't the boss. The boss is beatable, always. The part of the puzzle that's missing is you doing things right. If you knew the magic sequence and how to act in every cue, when you hear every boss noise and you see every bit of foreshadowing in motion, and you knew how to react in every point, you would be able to beat the boss. So the problem is not the outside. The problem is you. And the solution is not in the outside. The solution is in you. And you know it. And every time you go up against that boss, you know that the boss isn't going to change. The boss isn't going to get easier. You're going to get better. And so you have to do it anyway. And if you don't, then you, like many thousands of people who have picked up a Souls game and put it down, you have given up and you have failed. And you know it, and you'll always know it. And that is correct. But if you have the drive to drive, if you have the desire to overcome yourself, then you are capable of doing it, because it is possible. It's always possible. Even when it's not, it's always possible. And if you want proof, all you have to do is go look at somebody doing a no-hit run, no sword run, broken sword only run. And then you demonstrate and can find that you ain't shit, dude. And if you were better, you could be better. And that should shame you. You should be like, fuck, that makes me want to be better. I have to. And that's correct. Eventually you overcome. Something magical happens and you don't know exactly what it is, but you reach the end of that health bar and you finally overcome that boss. And the boss rejuvenates and regenerates a second health bar. Has another stage to it that you couldn't have predicted. And now the puzzle is much stronger than you ever thought it was. It's much more difficult, and you don't get any reward anyway. You just have to keep grinding even further. It's like the Abyss Watchers. Fuck! What else are you going to do? Well, you've overcome this far. If you give up now, what have you given up? So you can't give up. So you push harder, and you push harder, and you push against the thing that hurts the most. So hard that it breaks you so that you have to rebuild yourself, and eventually you overcome it. And you destroy your enemy, and it destroys you, and you reap the rewards. A huge amount of personal development, souls, a special soul that can be transformed into new weapons, usually, and a door opens into the future. What's beyond it, you don't know. But you step forward through that door, and usually it takes you to a whole new area with a whole new vantage point and a whole new vista, because you are not who you were before. You're someone new, and the world arrays itself before you in a new way. And you see from a new perspective, usually from up high in the Souls games, you see from a new perspective. And seeing from that new perspective, you realize that there's so much more path for you to follow beyond that one doorway. And infinity seems to stretch before you. Think of every grand vista in Dark Souls. It usually comes right after overcoming some experience and walking through some fog wall into the unknown. You overcome Pontiff Sulivan in Dark Souls 3. This amazingly potent boss, very difficult boss in many people's minds, mine included. Meant to be. You overcome the Pontiff, the corrupt righteous one, the corrupt church inside of yourself. And when you do, you have the revelation of all of Fallen Londo. Whoa, a huge landscape in front of you that opens up, that you can now explore. And it opens up and you can see up to the next space, up to the beyond, up to the impossible beyond that. And that's the space that you now have to explore and experience and battle through. And you battle through all the things that get into your way. And you move forward and forward and forward. Without knowing what's really going on in the universe, without having answers to the fundamental questions of why you are here, you answer the question yourself by saying, I am here to move forward. And that is what you do. And lots of people stop and they say, but what's the big point? What's the whole point? What's the game plan at the end? And the answer is, I don't know, man. What's the journey? What's the next step? And Dark Souls forces you over and over, repeatedly, to answer that fundamental question. What's the next step? Where do I go next? And everywhere that you go, there's pain. There's pain regardless of where you go, and there's beauty regardless of where you go. Up or down. Left or right. And it all comes back and cycles in as one, because you are one thing. And so whatever journey you go on going and exploring this way, exploring down into the depths of fire and the darkness below, you come back up a new built creature with new pathways explored that you can now traverse more effectively and more efficiently. You've built new neural pathways for understanding and iterating across space and time, and for traversing hardship, traversing landscapes. And you add a whole section of yourself to the map of the known. Does Dark Souls have messages from others to read like Elden Ring? It does. I don't know which game they started putting that in, but I believe that's from the beginning. Certainly Dark Souls 3 has those as a well-fleshed-out portion of its environment. Same with Invaders. Thanks for sharing it with me, Not Sid. I do have some problems with the video, but you know, it's the sort of thing where maybe instead of criticizing the video that exists, I should make my own fucking video, you know? Because I got some things to say about Souls games, and maybe I should say them. But a lot of them are things that I'm really repeating from other people that I've heard. I had a video pulled up, and now I've put it back away accidentally. Hold on. Historia. I don't know if this is the exact video, but let me show you this video by folding ideas that I think I remember being of value.
In a previous video, we talked about the idea of ludonarrative dissonance, a situation where the story being told by a game's mechanics disagrees with the story being told by a game's narrative, and people had a lot of interesting and curious responses. However, one example that people brought up stood out to me because it demonstrated not a misunderstanding of dissonance, but perhaps a misunderstanding of how games interact with narrative structure. So let's talk about the Stanley Parable, Dark Souls, and intended play. The Stanley Parable is a 2011 piece of first-person interactive fiction that revolves around a conflict between the player protagonist Stanley and the game's narrator. As the player works Stanley through the game, the narrator exposits his actions, including immediately upcoming actions that serve as instructions.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
The player chooses whether to follow these instructions or to attempt to subvert them in some way.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
Dark Souls, also published in 2011, is a third-person role-playing game where the player takes on the role of the Chosen Undead, a cursed human tasked by a vague prophecy with rekindling the first flame to preserve the Age of Fire. Now, these two games are, all in all, very different from one another, but they're illustrative for our point here because they both utilize elements of intentional, disobedience. Games have a dimension of interaction that means there's not merely intended interpretation, but also intended play. The intended interaction with a movie is pretty straightforward. The movie starts and you watch it.
And
there
shut
are
the fuck up and don't have your phone
subversive
out.
or alternative forms of watching, such as riffing a movie or the sing-along or whatever the hell midnight screenings of The Room count as.
Somebody throw spoons! Throw the spoons!
But generally speaking, it's pretty well bounded.
Yeah.
This interaction in games means that games can do something that other media rarely can outside of very experimental context, which is to tell the participant to do one thing while expecting them to do another. The Stanley Parable makes this process overt. The entire interaction paradigm of the game more or less revolves around this single principle, which is what makes it so illustrative. But it's not actually a niche type of interaction. Any open world game has a moment where the player is told to do one thing and can then choose to immediately turn around and go the other direction, opting instead to spend dozens or even hundreds of hours doing anything else but the thing that they were asked to do. Some games address this within the fiction, such as the Assassin's Creed games that suggest the player is playing a somewhat scrambled version of the story's events, that while Ezio may have jumped across all these roofs, he didn't necessarily do it for 5 straight hours one afternoon instead of stabbing minor Borgias in the neck. Others, like Final Fantasy VII, opt to ignore the disconnect entirely, operating on the logic that it's only weird if you call attention to it.
Yeah, just leave it be.
Games
Shut the
are
fuck up.
constantly telling us to do one thing and then waiting to see if we actually do it. The Stanley Parable uses this to create a conflict between the player and the game, but at the end of the day, that's just a costume put on an otherwise ordinary interaction. The narrator is simply a disembodied antagonist, like Shodan or GLaDOS, and much like GLaDOS, the narrator of the Stanley Parable tells you to do or not do specific things while the game fully expects you to ignore those requests.
Welcome to the final test. When you are done, you will drop the device in the Equipment Recovery Annex.
Now, those examples
rather
are
not
all
GLaDOS.
cases where a character within the
What are you
game can interact with its world. This is encapsulated in tutorials, but also environmental communication and reinforcing desired playstyles. The Assassin's Creed games are positively lousy with icons, indicators, and things that blink and glow to draw your eye and encourage interaction. It is a game series that sits on the verge of screaming at you about the many things it wants you to do. As is the case with Dark Souls, the game may simply use standard game language to imply that you shouldn't behave in a certain way, that some NPCs you shouldn't kill because they're your friends, or maybe just every last friendly NPC you will actually unlock whole new side stories and dungeons and bosses. This is not
Thanks,
simply
Ergo Hash.
emergent
I'm having
or
a great day.
procedural, this is intended play. If there is
I'm terrified
crafted
of tomorrow,
content
but
on the
I'm
other
having a great
side
day
of your
right now.
misbehavior, then it's not actually misbehavior. Because
Just
it turns
behavior.
out that murdering everyone is also the correct way to behave. What a game intends for you to do includes not only the things the fiction of the game tells you to do, but also the broader things the game permits you to do. If there is something that the game's author simply flat out 100% did not want you to experience, did not want you to engage in, then it wouldn't be there. Even when it comes to potential misbehavior using the rules of the system you're placed within, externalities that they didn't or couldn't account for, like throwing garbage at NPCs, the only truly accurate sign that the authors don't want you doing that is that nothing happens at all. This is because even a negative reaction, even the game pushing back against misbehavior, is content. This is a big challenge when writing about video games, that the text of a game includes not only the messages intended and implied by the game's explicit plot, and the ideas reinforced by the repetitive mechanical behaviors the game utilizes, but also a variety of potentially dramatically diverging intended postures of play. A reading of Dark Souls must encompass not just the nominal story, but also a breadth of possibilities and how those possibilities alter the reading. This added
Neato!
complexity means that games as texts
But
are
he was
harder to encompass,
intoxicated.
but it also means that games as a medium provide a potentially far denser package for meaning than other forms. And I understand why this trips people up. This idea that doing something the game is telling you not to do is in fact what the game wants you to do, because it's something the game's authors have accounted for and have programmed it to respond to. It's the treachery of images, but the treachery of content. C'est ce n'est pas ténèbres. So what do you think? What's your favorite moment in a game where it tells you not to do something that it ultimately intends for you to do, and why is it the genocide route in Undertale? Let me know in the comments.
Sweet. An excellent video. Not the one that I'm thinking of. I think I'm thinking of the one... I think it's H Bomber Guy's video about Dark Souls 2. Which is like a 2-hour-long diatribe that he wrote around Dark Souls 2, and I think it's a great video that had an immense impact on my desire to talk about creation, talk about art. A lot of what I do is inspired by people like Folding Ideas and people like H-Bomb. People who've decided to write opinions and express argumentative essays effectively. I find the content, I find it really compelling, trying to open up people's eyes, as we were discussing before, to the broader spectrum of experience and meaning and relevance that they could get from the experience of a game. You know, there's something magical to be said about producing a game, making a game that you could spend 100 hours on and come out with some revelations about life, right? Awesome. But if I can make a 10-minute video that converts your hundreds of hours of existing experience with a game, it converts them from entertainment into revelation, right? And it clicks those experiences that you've had into a format that makes them usable to you when previously they weren't usable. That 10 minutes is the most valuable 10 minutes in existence to you, because it took a thousand hours of attempts of struggle that don't mean anything to you, that you haven't been able to convey what they mean to yourself, and converts them to valuable information. So one type of teaching is the teaching that gives you all the tools, all the bits and pieces. And another type of teaching is the teaching that weaves them together and clicks them into place. And I want to do the second kind of teaching as much as possible. And so that's what I do with anime, or what I want to do with anime, is to say, you've spent, 25 hours watching this 100-episode show. What did you get from it? What could you get from those experiences and that information that you might not be able to get immediately? And that's exactly what a lot of video essayists, whether they do so consciously or not, do when they say, what makes Hunter x Hunter interesting is this, and they set out all the things that they've come to as conclusions for what makes Hunter x Hunter interesting. And hundreds and maybe even thousands of people look at that bit of the discourse, that bit of the video or the essay or whatever it is, and they can click their own things into place because of it. That's of great value. Not Sid says, yeah, and I think you have something to add to the discourse because you've said things I've never heard before, and I've seen lots of Dark Souls essays. Yeah, lots of people have lots of information that's of great value. And I have my own perspectives on things, which I can bring to bear. And if I can bring them to bear in a way that brings them closer to the fundamentals, the stuff like the way of Dharma, then that's fucking fascinating. But the frustration of this grasping, because it derives from ignorance, is not real. It is a shadow which can be dispelled by seeing life as it really is. The Buddha says succinctly, this arising, that arises. Whenever there is ignorance of life's nature, suffering has to follow. This subsiding, that subsides. As self-will dies, we awaken to our real nature. Then personal sorrow comes to an end. What is this real nature? Here the Buddha remains silent. He comes to us to point the way, to show a path, but he steadfastly refuses to limit with words what we will find. Yet he does tell us there is more to life than flux and process and the mechanical working out of karma. There is something unborn, unbecome, not made and not compounded. If there were not, there would be no means of escape from what is born, become, made, and compounded. In the limitless sea of samsara, in the midst of change, there is an island, a farther shore, a realm of being that is utterly beyond the transient world in which we live. Nirvana. You can take from that what you'd like. And that's the whole point, is that you'll take from it what you need to take from it if you believe that you can get from it what you will need. And the same is true with all aspects of life. If you view life as something that will give you what you need, it will. And if you view life as something that will give you only that which destroys you, it will. Most of us find it easy to get involved in certain kinds of movies. We get caught up in the action and forget ourselves, and our body and mind respond as if we were there on the screen. The heart races, the blood pressure goes up, the fists clench, and the mind gets excited and jumps to conclusions, just as if we were actually experiencing what is happening to the hero or heroine. The Buddha would say, you are experiencing it, and that is the way you experience life, too. And there is a serious question about the distinction between fictional experience and real experience, because They did, I don't remember who did the research, I'd have to look into it, but there was research done on the parts of the brain that are activated when you recall memories about Dungeons and Dragons characters that you've created. And what I remember them finding is that there was no distinction within the brain between real experiences and the fictional experiences that you've created at the table, that you've generated in like, mutual confirmation with others. Gotta go. Have a god one, y'all. I will have a god one, Sampers. I know you didn't mean for that to say that way, but I will. I will have a god one and a good one, and they are one and the same. But there's a question about how distinct a fictional experience is from a physical one. And it seems like they're less distinct to your brain than you would think. And there's no reason to suggest that a full spectrum experience that is fictional or fantastic would be any less real to you in the future than a full spectrum experience that is you walking around in the real world. A life-changing experience can happen during playing a video game. And it seems like the closer to full spectrum it is, the closer to real and changing and altering it can be to your behavior. So, when you watch an episode of anime or a series of anime and you say it has a material effect on you and you say, that changed my life, why should we question whether that can happen? It seems simply the expected outcome is, of course it would change your life. Of course it would change your life. Why would the idea that it is fictional make it any less worthy of changing your life? What makes that story more or less real to you? And I would posit that stories are often more real than reality itself, not just in how they're generated, but in how we interpret them. Stories are usually an extrapolation of many events expressed and seen over much time, especially ancient stories. Oh, right now I'm reading the web novel Worm, and sometimes these characters feel more real than life. Well, here's what I'll say, Kvel Drenari. Taylor is real to you, right, Kvel? She exists, and she's real to you. Taylor is real to me, too. I have an imagistic representation of who Taylor is and everything that she experiences inside my mind. She's a friend that I've known, and I've known her heart. You know? Because unlike in reality where I can talk to somebody and they can say, well, I want to go to the store, and or more accurately, they'll say, like, I want peace and love for all humanity. Okay, what if they're lying? They could be. I could believe that they're not, but they could be lying. Taylor, I've seen her heart. I've seen what she thinks. I know her spirit and soul, and how she's acted upon it. Her existence is as real in my mind as that of anybody that I've ever met, maybe more so. And the fact is, you've met her too. And I've met her too. And a whole thousands and thousands of people have an idea of Taylor, of Skitter, running around inside their brain. She's more real than most human beings. Most human beings aren't known by 1,000 people, haven't met 1,000 people, haven't influenced or impacted 1,000 people. Taylor has influenced hundreds of thousands of people who've read her story, and it's had impacts on the way that they view the world. Okay, so is Taylor real or is Taylor fictional? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the question is, how real is Taylor? Fictional though she is, how real is Taylor? As real as Mr. Folding Ideas guy? Yeah. Maybe more so. As real as you? Maybe more so. Experiencing the story of characters in novels and manga, you are literally reconstructing the sense data of their experience in yourself. You're reflecting it, yes. As far as I think, she's struggling on some alternate Earth somewhere. Yeah, the alternate Earth of the fictional universe. The fictional multiverse, right? We generate our own multiverse through image. And if we... Okay, so let me back this up or move it forward in both. The observer creates the universe, as far as we can tell. Physically, on a physical material level, as far as we can tell, the process of observation is the process that locks things into certainty. Things are uncertain until they are observed. Okay, until they are observed by something else. Okay. Who is to say that you, if we assume that you are a quantum entanglement device, that you are a device, your spirit, soul, human brain complex, this manifold of flesh that you are, from which your consciousness emerges, that thing creates a reality. You can do it right now. If you close your eyes and you envision one reality where you let's see, one reality where you slap yourself in the face and one reality where you don't. Okay? Over the next 5 seconds, you just split the universe into two timelines. You just split it with your mind. And you can, as far as I can determine, you can actually choose which one you're going to choose. Will you go and slap yourself in the face or not? Yes, I suppose I will. And now it's locked from uncertainty into certainty. Those two distinct possibilities get folded down into one, folding ideas, limiting uncertainty. So when I look at this guitar, right? There's an infinite set of notes, essentially, that I could play. Uncertain. It's totally uncertain. And I play this one. And now that note is certain. In space. And the next note has to be right compared to that note. If it's the wrong note compared to that note, it's a little bit off. It has to be... And there it is. And you tell a different set of possible futures that narrows down as you make choices. So you choose one note out of all of the possible notes. And in doing so, you collapse all the... Yeah, exactly, EC. You collapse those possibilities via your actions. You collapse all the other possibilities into the one possibility that you've chosen. You limit the uncertainty. But you are an uncertainty generator, a future potential generator. And so I wonder if our minds are powerful enough to generate full fantastical realities. And it's obvious that they are. Because in the 1970s, Gary Gygax came up with a fantastical reality, right? Of Dragonlance and Greyhawk, these places that don't exist. These places that don't exist in the real world, and they began existing. The worlds of Dungeons and Dragons, right? The worlds created by Gygax and those around him. And he shared those worlds with other people and allowed them to play in them, and in doing so, they were altered. And those realities became more solidified. The more people knew about them and agreed on certain elements of them, and agreed that, yes, this is the way that the castle is, and the castle's over here, and it's this many miles from the castle to the other place, they begin to structure out the framework that underlies a reality that doesn't exist, that exists only in fiction and in fantasy. And it's as real a place as here in many ways. You can go there, and if you abide by the physical laws of that reality, you can create a character within it, and you can take that character and go to any game table where they're playing in that setting. Yeah, the collective dream from Paprika. You can take that to any game table where they're playing in that setting, and you can convert your character from one to the other, because it's a real place that you can really access with other real people. The collective dream from Paprika is exactly the idea, and you can get lost in it. So you need a balance between that collective dreaming and your individual ideation of self, because you can become soup. If you're just in the flow of the zeitgeist of letting fantasy overwhelm you, and you're not taking up, how would I put it? If you're not taking up the sword of truth and effectively armored in culture and tradition, and if you're not parsing what is good from what is not, what is true from what is not within all of the different fantasies, and if you're unwilling to actively choose, that's exactly right, Kveltrinari. The third impact happens. Exactly right. The soup, the goop, and what happens in Paprika? It leaks out into the world and everything becomes insane, and people become, instead of driving the forces that are grander than us, they become driven by them. Okay, so here's a question. If you and I and everyone else has an idea of what lust is it not a real entity? Just like the consciousness of the void, or anger, or determination, or pride, or love. You have within you all of these things that are bigger than you, that everybody else has too, and they're as real can be. They're the thing that casts the shadows on the wall in Plato's allegory of the cave, and you are merely a shadow. But the entities that are more real than you are entities like Taylor and what she represents. And also in Worm, the truths of what all those things are this intradimensional amalgam that wants to be whole. And that is correct. The external forces have always been. And what you might say is, we exist in the garden, and the forces of darkness have always been there. The forces that are not us, that are bigger than us, are part of the fundamental resonance. And we are a part of them and they are a part of us, but they've always been there. Ever read Garth Nix's Keys to the Kingdom? I have not, EC. If you want to tell me about it, I'll listen. You know what I've been doing that's been really fun and interesting? It's kind of like reading tea leaves or something like that. Or I imagine reading tarot. Because it's what you take from it. The idea isn't that magically the page will open to the right page and you'll see the thing that you need, that it most needs to show you. It's that in your process of interpretation, you will find what you're really seeking. And that is when I have a question about how to be, I've been flipping through and opening to a random page of one of the religious texts around me. Sometimes I'll open the Holy Bible, sometimes I'll open the Dhammapada. I haven't started opening the Quran yet. I look forward to doing so. But I'll open it to a page and I'll just read whatever my eye catches on. And people have done this since we've had books. They've done this as an idea. And I don't think it's that the universe actually delivers up to you what you actually need. I think it's that by observing, you choose what things you actually need in the universe, and you discover the answers that you already knew from the seeking. It's like if you have a decision between two things, what you need to do is to toss a coin, and you'll know immediately which one you want. As the coin hangs in the air, you'll know immediately which you're hoping for. It happened to me yesterday when we streamed, and I did the poll around which strap to buy, right? Because in the moment that I put the poll up, my mind went, I want the $250 one. And it's true. It's truly what I really wanted, was that piece of majestic art I want on my body. And then I had to step away from that because I had already dedicated myself to the chance, to the flow, to the reality, to not getting what I wanted, and finding that what I needed wasn't what I wanted. Excellent. Okay. In it, there are keepers, lords of the days, who have keys that shape reality. Outside their fortress is a seething acid called nothing. Oh, that sounds about right. And using the keys, they're able to shape all of creation out of it. It's a fantastic young adult series. That sounds like just reality. That sounds like me. That's just me, dude. What are you talking about? That's not a book series. That's reality. That makes perfect sense. Outside of the fortress of the world is a seething acid called nothing. Yes, indeed. Correct. Void. Emptiness. Yep. Aether. Non-existence. Odium, even. Yeah. Correct. Correct. Click, click, clack. Brandon Sanderson has a similar set of ideation, you know? You've got shards and the beings that they represent, and they're each an ideal, and the ideals shape their world, their universe, around the ideal itself. And people choose to align with that or not to their own peril. That's exactly right. So let me open this. Eating too much, sleeping too much, like an overfed hog, those too lazy to exert effort are born again and again in every generation. Long ago, my mind used to wander as it liked and do what it wanted. Now I can rule my mind as the Mahout controls the elephant with his hooked staff. Be vigilant. Guard your mind against negative thoughts. Pull yourself out of bad ways as an elephant raises itself out of the mud. If you find a friend who is good, wise, and loving, walk with him all the way and overcome all dangers. If you cannot find a friend who is good, wise, and loving, walk alone. Like a king who has renounced his kingdom or an elephant roaming at will within the forest. It is better to be alone than to live with the immature. Be contented and walk alone like an elephant roaming in the forest. Turn away from evil. It is good to have friends when friendship is mutual. Good deeds are friends at the time of death. But best of all is going beyond sorrow. It is good to be a mother, good to be a father, good to be one who follows the Dharma. But best of all is to be an illumined sage. It is good to live in virtue, good to have faith, good to attain the highest wisdom, good to be pure in heart and mind. Joy will be yours always. There was a scene in a British show called Fleabag, which came up a number of times when I asked for quotes. I don't know if that was you posting them, Kveldrunari, but when I asked yesterday for people to post quotes that live rent-free in their head, and a number of people posted quotes from Fleabag, which I haven't seen. There was a scene in a British show called Fleabag. MC is in a therapy session and asked the therapist, just tell me what to do. And the therapist said, you already know what you're going to do. That stuck with me. That makes sense. That makes sense. You know what you need to do. And it's true, right? What's my purpose? What am I passionate about? I haven't found it. Maybe you should look around and instead of asking what you're supposed to be doing, look around you and ask what needs to be done. What needs doing? And you'll find the answers on the smallest scale and the largest. You'll find that there are things on your desk that are out of place, and you can see a bit of my mess here. And that's fair. The room that I live in is an externalization of my mental state. And my mental state for the last few days has been pretty scattered. And I've realized as I get closer to the date that is foretold, which is to say my doctor's appointment that I made an appointment of, as I get closer to the day of judgment, I realize what my scatteredness is, really. It's fear. I'm afraid. And I mean, I'm really afraid. My life is on the line. And that scares me. But if you look around yourself, you'll find on the smallest scale, up through to the largest scale, exactly what needs to be done. And you will want to run the fuck away from it, because what needs to be done is terrifying. And it will probably get you burned at the stake if you do what you actually believe needs to be done. So find the balance and find a way to start small and start fighting tiny, tiny little dragons. You start at level 1, you're a D&D character. Start at level 1. Start going from there. In the same way of all you have to do is ask the universe for guidance. A couple days ago, I asked the universe what would happen if I rolled a D&D character for myself. What would happen? And I went ahead and I rolled the dice. And what came out of it is the most terrifyingly accurate representation of how I see myself that I've ever seen. This is it. It's got lots of scribbles and stuff, for sure. But here you can see the scores across. I rolled them with a d20. I rolled a d20 across for the scores. So it could have been a 1 to a 20 on each score. And these are the scores that I rolled, natural, unchanged. 5, 20, 4, 19, 19, 15. That's what I rolled. I asked the universe to roll me stats for me, and that's what it rolled. And that's exactly accurate to how I see myself. I am weak. I'm a small human being. A 5 out of 20 on strength. That's weak. Beyond weak. I'm a small human being. I mean, really, I'm 5'5". That's accurate. I have 20 dexterity. I rolled it a natural 20 for dexterity. And that is accurate to me. I have incredible abilities to articulate my fingertips. My reflexes are spectacular to me. I'm in awe often of how nimble I actually am if I work toward it and if I train it. And yet I've never really trained it effectively. And then the scariest number of all is my constitution. My constitution, I roll a 4. And that's the score of someone who is dying. And that is correct, because I think I'm dying. And I might be wrong, and I'd like to not be correct. I'd like to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I'm dying. And I rolled a 4 for that number. And that seems correct to me. So I have to figure out ways to improve that. Intelligence and wisdom. I'm humbled to admit this. But I think that's accurate. Not perfect, 1919. Not perfect, never perfect. But damn close. I've been gifted with an incredible sight. My eyes are better than 2020, like significantly better than 2020, better than 1020. Or 2010, whichever it is. I have some of the best eyes in the world. If you took all of the human population, I would be in the top percent of the top percent of seeing. Perceptiveness. That's incredible. And I'm humbled by that fact. But it is factual. And then, as arrogant as it is to admit, I do believe myself quite intelligent. Not in terms of I know many things, that's not what it means. It means the ability to learn and comprehend information quickly, to solve puzzles when they're given to you. And I'm really good at it. Really good at analogous thinking, really good at certain types of test taking. Not great at math, but really good at a whole bunch of things. And that's fascinating that that's what I rolled. And then charisma, the thing that I struggle with because it doesn't come to me naturally, but it is what I have dedicated myself to. I have a 15 in. And it is what I have dedicated myself to, is to expressing these things to other people. Not becoming a sage. Not really. Not becoming just a wizard. Not really. But becoming a bard. because a bard is what I am. But apparently not, because I went and I rolled for classes as well. And I rolled 2 in a row. I rolled one d6. Oh, I'm sorry, 1d8 and then another d8. And I rolled a 6 and a 3. And if you take those, that's druid, and then 6 plus 3 is 9 is paladin. And that's correct too. At least I can frame it that way, right? I'm playing horoscopes with myself. It's not that the universe... Well, I don't think that it's that the universe gave me the right answers. It's that I see the rightness in the answers the universe gave me. You see the difference? But I rolled for classes, and those classes were starting as a druid and then becoming a paladin. And that's correct, I think. Starting at the root, at the connectedness of all things, at nature, at learning of the fundamental, at being close to the living things. Because that's where I started, was in the forest, and in camping, and in being outside, and in embodying, and in learning those things myself. And then to become a paladin. And so I look at the future that's before me, and I have to be thoughtful, because I must take an oath soon, and I don't know what the oath will be, but the oath that I take will significantly affect my life. And I'm not sure what the oath will be, but I think it's an oath of sharing. An oath of harmony. And I think this is my chosen weapon. My axe. And my axe! I think this is my chosen weapon. And one of these days, soon, maybe on camera, maybe not, probably it will be something I must do in private. I'll kneel down before this sword, this weapon of mine, and I'll swear myself to it. Not to it, sorry, that's not quite right. I'll swear myself to some grand ideal and swear this as my weapon to move forward. But I don't know if I'll swear on the guitar. It might not be quite right. It might not be quite right. I may need to swear on something else. Oh, no, I already did. I already did this. I'm such a fool. I forgot. I'm so silly. I already did this. I already swore my oath. I swore it to the scissors. Where are they? The little scissors. The little scissors. There. I did it in the I watched Kill la Kill on Acid video. I swore it on these. This is my sword. I forgot. I like that Knights Radiant don't have a specific weapon. Yeah. Well, I don't have a specific weapon either. I rolled for a feat for my character, my D&D character, and the feat that I rolled was Tavern Brawler. Yeah. The feat that I rolled for the character was Tavern Brawler, which is to say, one who is proficient with improvised weapons. Okay? So like Hibiki Tachibana, I'm a Tavern Brawler. Not a brawler, right? I don't have the strength for it. But I'm able to pick up any weapon and make it my weapon. And in doing so, I gain proficiency with it. That is correct. The swearing, I did swear upon the scissors. And I swore upon them in this way, that this is the scissor blade of truth, that it is the left and right sides of the brain, that it is the paths of right and left, of light and dark, and that I am the thing that divides the two and decides what to keep. I am the scissors that goes through my own reality deciding for myself what is good and what is what is not, what is wheat and what is chaff. But the scissors are just an externalization, because I am proficient with the scissors, but I need not swear upon them. I swear upon my empty hands. Whether they're closed as fists in order to fight, or open in order to grasp at the world, or open in order to reach out to you. And we can reach out and connect, like Hibiki Tachibana. And I can use these hands to pick up that guitar, and use it and become proficient in it, improvise it into a weapon that I can use to fight the ongoing battle for unity and oneness and glory and life against chaos and entropy and void and darkness. I can pick up the guitar and I can fight. I can pick up the microphone and I can fight. I can pick up the camera and I can fight. And I can pick up myself and I can fight. And that's correct. I have already sworn my oath, haven't I? Ha! Fool. And I did it without knowing what I was doing, too. And only now can I become conscious of it. Already I am druid and I am paladin. A druid of the stars. Circle of the stars. Pointed upward, right? Always upward. With a star map to guide the way. A collection of verses. Scribed in myself. In my mind. A star map druid. And now a paladin. And I've already sworn my paladin's oath, so I'm a level 3 paladin at least. That's me. That's me. This weird thing that I accidentally rolled stats for. That I asked the universe, who am I? Please represent me in data. And it did. That's me. I am a tavern brawler with 5 strength and 4 constitution. Maxed out dexterity, incredible int and wisdom. Good charisma, but I'm dying. And so, weak and sickly, which is how I am, I swear and have sworn to fight for the light. Not light, that's incorrect. To fight for the oneness, for love, for electromagnetism. It is light. I'm wrong. It is light. And I swear to fight for it. Wow. A reason for being, eh? So then that raises a question. Is the way that I have been acting in the world up to this point aligned with that oath? And the answer is not completely. In part, I have been striving for it, but in part it is not completely aligned. And there are parts of what I do that I do not like. And they're right in my face right now, as I've received these copyright strikes for various pieces of media that I've put out there. It's right there in my face, which is that my righteous indignation at the copyright police is misplaced. Because as much as I hate the corporatization of copyright, and as much as I believe that my work is fair use, it is not the fairest of use, and it could be better. And it encourages exploitation. Would you explain what you mean by Thanatos energy, EC? And I'll go on as you do to say, I think that I'm not aligned yet. Ideations of death. Got it. Thanatos energy. I see. Yes, they can be quite damaging. That makes sense. But I think there's a difference between ideations of death and an awareness of death. And in how you approach it. Because death comes for us all, and to pretend that it doesn't seems like a faulty road. To live in awareness of your own mortality, however, seems to lead people to live for life, for what they do have. And that seems correct. So I think you can be aware of your mortality without being consumed by it. Does that make sense? And let me be clear about something in particular. I'm going to find out tomorrow whether I'm dying or not. I am not going to die regardless. I'm not going to die regardless. What I will find out is the information that I need to determine what to do next. But what I do next will be in the interest of living. I want to live. Living is good. Being is good, and I would like very much to be for longer. In no way do I plan to lay down and say, oh, this is what the universe wants for me. I guess I'll just lay down and fucking die. No. No. I have things to do. I refuse. I will not be bowled over by this. Even if it was my whole body overwhelmed by cancer trying to eat at me, I would fight. And I will fight. And within myself, I will divide that which I do not need, that I do not want, that is not correct. I will divide it from that which is correct, and I will cast away into the fire that which I do not need. And that's going to mean going to the dermatologist and saying, cut that out of me now. Cut it out now. Remove as many of the pieces of this wrongness from my body as possible, and I will handle the rest. Give me the immunotherapy that I need to make myself whole and one. Let me move toward life. And I'm going to move toward life. And it's going to be hard. And these next weeks and months, these next weeks and months are going to be the hardest of my life, and I'm ready. I'm really ready. The universe has provided me with every tool that I would need to overcome the great hardship that is coming. And I have no illusions over whether this is going to be easy. It's not. It's not. But I stood a couple of weeks ago. I stood in the ice water, the cold water of my shower, and I said to the universe, bring it on, motherfucker, bring it on. And I meant it. And I would be what a pussy little bitch I would be if I were to run away now, because the universe is bringing it. And I'm a little fool. I'm a little fool for saying, come on, hit me, I can take it. Because that's what I said to the universe. Come on, hit me, I can take it. And we'll see if I can take it, but I believe I can. I hope that the doctors can support me well and give me the truth too. If I find out that I have melanoma and their only recommendation is chemical therapy or radiation burn therapy, then I'm gonna look at some of the places where they're doing research on this and submit myself to research. Because there are people like the people at True North Health Center and elsewhere that are doing pretty spectacular research. And so I'd like to dedicate myself to overcoming this monster that is within me, that is killing many, many people. Cancer is killing many of us. And I'd like to dedicate myself to figuring out why and overcoming it and proving that I can and that you can too. And we'll see if I can come out the other end. It's not clear to me that the path will be, well, that the path will be clear to me. It's not clear to me that there is a path at all. But you're exactly right, Nito. Just who the hell do you think I am? I'm going that way. I'm going that way. And if little pieces of my skin decide that they're going to get in my way, I'll cut them off. And I'll do it myself if I have to. First, I'm going to go to a doctor and see if they'll do it properly for me. I'm down for it, man. I'm down to suffer. I know what it feels like. I don't know what pain could be. You know, there's pain beyond the pain that you know. And to think that you know pain is arrogant. But I'm down. I'm down. Fucking show me, man. It's only pain. It's only pain. And I am the thing that walks through fire and is not burned. I am the human spirit. Existence is pain. Existence is cold emptiness trying to tear you apart from the moment that you're born. From the moment that you started to exist to the day that it finally takes you and wins. The void is trying to tear you apart, and you're doing your damnedest to burn hot and keep it at bay. I asked for the universe to hit me. I asked for it. So now we'll find out if I can take a punch. And with only 4 constitution, I might not be able to take much of a punch. But if it doesn't kill me outright in the first blow, I'm going to be back. If it doesn't kill me outright in the first blow, I'm going to be back again and again and again and again. Because I believe. Because I believe. Because I believe in myself, but I believe more fundamentally in being. Being is good, and I get the grand opportunity to be a part of being, and my body is deciding to revolt against it? Fuck that. Fuck that. Being is good, and I will be longer. And well. For as long as I can. Because I have things to do. I have purpose here. I called this stream Sharing and Caring, and that's the purpose, isn't it? Share of my energy. Care about the others. Resonance, harmony, love, light. We're all waveforms traveling through space, made up of waveforms traveling through space, locked together in lockstep, harmonizing towards some great song. I agree and I disagree, Jojo. The only thing we can do is to just keep walking through it all. You can just keep walking, and you can sow misery wherever you go. You can walk around and spit on the ground beneath you and curse the heavens and cast doubt and despair in every space that you walk into. Or you can keep your head up and serve as an example to those around you who are walking too. And keep your head up and keep your eyes fixed on the horizon and keep believing that you'll walk somewhere. And in believing you'll already be there, right? Right. Because the walking continues. The process continues. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. There's just whether or not your eyes have adjusted to the dark. Yes, exactly that. I know that you know. I know that you know what I mean. It's the noble path. You're going to experience suffering. There are many paths that you can take in relation to that. What you choose to do, once you realize that the universe is full of pain, and that pain actively wants to destroy you, what you choose to do determines how you will be, and how the universe will arrange itself around you. That's the power of perception, the power of observation, and the power of experience. And that's correct. Fuck. It's scary as shit. It brings us back to the first video that we watched. Radical Ownership from Jocko. Or one of the first that we watched. Because if you recognize that everything that you experience means to you what you choose for it to mean, how you relate to each of those experiences, whether you choose to take ownership and control of them, determines your life's path. Because you can determine your life's path. It's the first line when Eswaran, where'd my Dhammapada go? Here. When Eswaran translated the Dhammapada, chose a particular line to put in the front. The first line in the book is, as irrigators guide water to their fields, as archers aim arrows, as carpenters carve wood, the wise shape their lives. with consciousness, with awareness that it is a skill, with awareness that it can become something more than it is now. You shape yourself. You aim at the target. You work and work and work to carve yourself. And you can only do that if you take ownership of yourself and your experience. Until I get myself in line, in order, in unity. Until I get myself in line, I will fall apart. And this is me falling apart. The cancer that is on my arm and is growing through me. It's me falling apart. It's me not believing. And it's going to get me if I let it. I'm not going to let it. I'd like to be whole. Every atom, every cell in my body loves itself. Loves every other atom, every other cell in my body. Top to bottom, one unity, dedicated and driven toward one purpose, and that purpose is hard to say. That purpose is that there is purpose. That purpose is faith in the possibility that there is purpose, that there is a reason for being, that being is good, and sharing that as well as I can with as many people as possible. I want to resonate so strongly in the world that others cannot help but be caught up in that resonance, and I want to point it toward the highest ideals and the highest good that I can find. That way. That way. Ow. 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 That way. Up. For all of us. Just who the hell do you think I am? I don't know what that means, Nito. Eh. 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 Translate that. Eh. Eh. Thoughts that started running are still. Ah, lyrics from the OP. Got it. Do the impossible, see the invisible. Row, row, fight the power. Touch the untouchable, break the unbreakable. Row, row, fight the power. Power to the peeps. Power to the doop. Doop 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 doop. I am a drill. I'm going somewhere. I choose to go that way. I choose to go that way. The anti-spiral lives within me. The chaos and the destruction and the anti-unity lives within me. And I must cast it out in every form, in every way. and become physically one, mentally one, and spiritually one. All the way up, all the way down. Unified toward purpose. And I think if I can do that, and part of that is going to the fucking doctor, right? Yeah. But a lot of people go into the doctor, get a cancer diagnosis, and assume that their lives are over. And they're right. And a lot of people go to the doctor and get a cancer diagnosis and believe that they have found their purpose and that the universe is giving them an opportunity to show that they're worthwhile. And they're right too. So I'm going to go into the doctor's office tomorrow, and I'm going to come out with a diagnosis. And whatever that diagnosis is, it will be right. And it will be what I have earned, what I deserve, and what I need. And it will be the opportunity for me to move into the future. And if I should find that I am not in harm's way, then I will harness that relief that I will feel, and I'll turn it into action. And if I find that I am in harm's way, then I will harness that despair that I feel and turn it into action. And either way, action will be the answer. Movement will be the answer, and I will move forward and up. Will you stream tomorrow to let us know? I'm not sure. I may take tomorrow to be alone, mostly. I'm going to the doctor's with my friend has generously offered to drive me there. So I'm going with a friend. But I think I'm going to take much of tomorrow to be alone. And much of tonight, too. To consider. And to think. And to remember. But I will let you know. Whatever happens, I'll make some sort of statement about it. Because I want to share this with you as much as I can. And as honestly as I can. Because it scares the shit out of me, you know? And that seems correct, and I'd like to demonstrate publicly how I react to that. And if that means falling apart and weeping and whatever ends up happening, then you should be privy to that, I think. I think I should share those things and demonstrate my weakness. Because my weakness will come, I'm sure. But if I can be strong, then I'd like to demonstrate that too. So I don't know what I'll do, Kveldranari. I'll let you know. In some way, you have your community behind you. That's an important thing for me to remember. Is that there are a lot of people who believe in me really strongly. And even if I have said the words, if I have said that I accept this duty and this burden and this responsibility moving forward, there's a difference between saying them and really acting them out, and sharing of myself and my vulnerability as a whole with the community that I've built around myself is terrifying, especially when it's as dark as this. But I think you're right that it's probably something that I have to do. It's probably the opportunity that has been afforded me, is the opportunity to share a descent into real struggle and a demonstration of real hardship. And maybe that's exactly what I've earned. Because I've done a lot of speaking about how one should act in the face of hardship. I've spoken to things that I really believe. And then I've spoken to another truth, which is that if you don't act them out, you don't really believe them. And perhaps the universe has simply afforded me the opportunity to act out what I believe in. And for that I am grateful. What a great dragon I've been given. I cannot wait to cut its corpse open and find the gem at its center. And to build my castle upon it, upon the site of its death. I cannot wait. I'm excited. That's a weird thing about this. If I change the way that I frame the experience, I become excited. I'm excited to go to the doctor and find out that I have the hardest struggle of my existence before me. I'm excited. Maybe that's twisted. I don't know. But, you know, mindsets and mentalities have distinct and dramatic effects on survival rates of many diseases. Cancer not least among them. How you go into it, what you decide to do, what you believe will happen to you, changes you. They did studies, I can't remember who it was. But they did they did 2 milkshakes that were indistinguishable flavor-wise, and they simply told people that one of the milkshakes had healthy stuff in it, and the other one was a high-fat, unhealthy milkshake. And the people's they actually gave them the same milkshake, and the people's full biological response to the milkshakes was completely different. And their satiety and their feeling and their everything about the way that their biology responded to it was different based on what they thought the milkshake was doing to them. So if you extrapolate out from that, your response to anything determines how it will affect you. Your attitude toward it, your mindset around it, determines how it will affect you. And so I think it's materially true that by observing or looking at or perceiving this potential great obstacle as a great opportunity for growth and development and overcoming, I have actively increased my chances of survival by a significant margin, because I believe that I will. And not only that I believe that I will, but that I believe that it is a good thing that it's happening in the first place. This hardship is an opportunity to succeed. And because I believe it, it is true. So, what do we take away from this? What you believe about the world matters. If you believe in good, good will come to you. If you believe that evil rules the world, it will. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Suffering follows an evil thought as the wheels of a cart follow the oxen that draw it. Our life is shaped by our mind. We become what we think. Joy follows a pure thought like a shadow that never leaves. He was angry with me. He attacked me. He defeated me. He robbed me. Those who dwell on such thoughts will never be free from hatred. He was angry with me. He attacked me. He defeated me. He robbed me. Those who do not dwell on such thoughts will surely become free from hatred. For hatred can never put an end to hatred, love alone can. This is an unalterable law. People forget that their lives will end soon. For those who remember, quarrels come to an end. As a strong wind blows down a weak tree, Mara the tempter overwhelms weak people who, eating too much and working too little, are caught in the frantic pursuit of pleasure. As the strongest wind cannot shake a mountain, Mara cannot shake those who are self-disciplined and full of faith. Those who put on the saffron robe, the robe of the monk, without purifying the mind, who lack the truthfulness and self-control, are not fit to wear the saffron robe. But those who have purified their minds, who are endowed with truth and self-control, are truly fit to wear the saffron robe. The deluded, imagining trivial things to be vital to life, follow their vain fancies and never attain the highest knowledge. But the wise, knowing what is trivial and what is vital, set their thoughts on the supreme goal and attain the highest knowledge. As rain seeps through an ill-thatched hut, passion will seep through an untrained mind. As rain cannot seep through a well-thatched hut, passion cannot seep through a well-trained mind. Those who are selfish suffer here and hereafter. They suffer in both worlds from the results of their own actions. But those who are selfless rejoice here and rejoice hereafter. They rejoice in both worlds from the results of their own actions. Those who are selfish suffer in this life and in the next. They suffer seeing the results of the evil they have done, and more suffering awaits them in the next life. But those who are selfless rejoice in this life and in the next. They rejoice seeing the good that they have done, and more joy awaits them in the next life. There's one more passage. Those who recite many scriptures but fail to practice their teachings are like a cowherd counting another's cows. And I am at risk of being that. And that may be precisely why I have been gifted this opportunity to act what I believe out and to prove it in the real world against the greatest of hardships that I could face. They do not share in the joys of the spiritual life, but those who know few scriptures yet practice their teachings, overcoming all lust, hatred, and delusion, live with a pure mind in the highest wisdom. They stand without external supports and share in the joys of the spiritual life. Like oxen following a horse. The readings are good. Thanks for sharing. You're absolutely welcome. I've continuously found that the Dhammapada in particular, the path of Dharma, has been endlessly a wellspring of knowledge and utility for me. And the translation notes and author's notes from Eknath Eswaran, have been stellar as well. I'm really grateful to have picked up this book. And as I read through the Bhagavad Gita, the things that I found there were exceptionally valuable too. And I will estimate that when I finally crack, well, let's just do it. Fucking stop being an asshole and just do it. No, that's the Upanishads. Where's the Islam one? Excuse me, one Islam, please. One hated Muslims. Yes, please. Thank you. Yes. One most hated of Muslims. Let's go. Shall we be rewarded if we win? Yes, and you will join my inner court. So they said, Moses, will you throw first or shall we? And he said, you throw. And they did, casting a spell on people's eyes, striking fear into them and bringing about great sorcery. Then we inspired Moses. Throw your staff, and lo and behold, it devoured their fakery. The truth was confirmed, and what they had produced came to nothing. They were defeated there and became utterly humiliated. The sorcerers fell to their knees and said, we believe in the Lord of all the worlds, the Lord of Moses and Aaron. But Pharaoh said, how dare you believe in him before I have given you permission? This is a plot you have hatched to drive out the people of this city. Soon you will see. I will cut off your alternate hands and feet and then crucify you all. They said, and so we shall return to our Lord. Your only grievance against us is that we believed in the signs of our Lord when they came to us. Our Lord pour steadfastness upon us and let us die in devotion to you. Interesting. Out of context, I don't know what that means. But they who believe, beset upon by tyranny, decide to weather the tyranny and keep their faith instead of rescinding their faith in the face of pain. And that seems correct. This is a more woven together text. Instead of being isolated individual pieces of wisdom that can be taken out, it seems like the whole thing is woven together, and I might have to start it at the beginning and really read it, which is a difficult thing to try to do with a dense religious text, and very unfortunate because it is such. But I've done it before. I did it with the Bible, and I will do it with the Bhagavad Gita. I'll have to do it with the Quran as well, and read through it in fullness. I'm really finding these texts to be endlessly valuable. So as I move forward into this new chapter of my life, I don't know what will become of me or become of my existence online, but I can be certain that it will not go away. and that it will probably become more intensely focused on doing things precisely correctly and speaking truth as precisely as I can. And that may mean a total change in format. And that might mean a total loss of support from the community that I've built. But I will do my absolute best to walk the most correct path that I can. And step by painstaking step, I would like to attempt to chart a noble path forward through my life, and to show that charting and the difficulty of it and the failures that I make along the way, to show those to the world and to be judged openly, and to let what I believe is God is all of you, to let all of you, all of the world, all of reality, and the great AI in the sky that's coming, to let it all see me in fullness, a struggling human, suffering, broken, but unbowed. So I endeavor to suffer nobly. And that may be the secret itself. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. But seriously, thank you to those of you who are still here. I appreciate you a lot. I'll try to be a little bit less esoteric in the future, because one thing that I know for certain is that speaking in religious terms or in grandeur, terms of grandeur, turns a lot of people off. And that means that it's not the effective way to speak the lessons. The most effective lesson is the one that sticks with you, whatever it is. So if I can provide little bits of that and sneak them into content that you would otherwise watch anyway, that may be a more honest way of doing things, oddly. And similarly, maybe my monetization schema and my ideas around it might be wrong. Maybe I do need to charge for my work, but I need to make work that is worth charging for first. So I'll experiment down those paths, and I'll fold out manifold possible futures, and I'll experiment in the spaces of them, and I'll dismiss the ones that do not work and cut them away and fold them down into a path that seems right and balanced and walkable and real and worthwhile. And I'll do so on some set of guiding principles that starts at its root with one belief that I would love very much for you to agree with. And that belief is, man, it's good to be. It is good to be. Being is good. And I'd love if we shared in that belief, fundamentally. Because if we share in that, then whether we agree or disagree about red or blue, whether we agree or disagree about left or right, up or down even, well, no, we can't disagree about up or down. If you want to go down, you can get the fuck away from me. But if you want to go left or right, as long as we're agreed about going up, as long as we're agreed about there being something fundamentally unifying about life and existence and love, then we can bridge any other gap. So my goal is to convince you of that, and to do so through my actions. I want to believe so hard that I tear the world apart and put it back together. And that might mean tearing myself apart and putting myself back together. And so that's what I'm going to do. Thank you for watching. My love to you as you've shared love with me. Go share love with somebody else in your life, please. You don't know how long you have. You don't know how long you have on this earth. Be aware of that. And don't be paralyzed by it. but use it as fuel to remember that you need to act now for the things that matter. So share your love with somebody that you love. And share your love for yourself by cleaning up the space that you live in, by treating yourself with respect, by fueling yourself with quality food. Go be an emissary of love in this world, please. And I'll go do the same. Thank you for being. May being be good to you, and may you be good in being. Peace.